Poland was the most successful economy in Europe that really took a lot of FDI. It's not the highest, but this is a high income country. This is as rich as America was in the 90s or more. I think I'm more like a CIA analyst. America needs a whole lot of drones. Who's going to make that? Well, we can make some in America, but Poland's a great place to make it because you have, all these Ukrainians who know how to make good drones. And yet you can do it mostly safe from Russian attack. Maybe Russia will attack in the future, but not soon. But so we usually do industrial policy because we're scared of global competition. And I think that's why we're turning back to industrial policy. Again, it's because of China. It's all because of China. So the pattern persists.
Welcome to the podcast about geoeconomics. We explore intersection of global economy, politics and technology. My name is Krzysztof Mazur, and today I have a privilege to welcome Noah Smith.
Hey.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Howdy. In Polish, siema.
Siema.
Yeah, it's something I learned from you today. It's a Texan. Texan, yeah.
Yeah.
I can use this famous phrase, and the way how Mercy Capture welcomed J.D. Vance a few days ago. First time here?
Yes, my first time here.
What do you think about Poland?
Oh, I love it. It's great. The people are nice. Food is great. City is beautiful.
And weather is okay.
Weather's okay.
At least in the summer. For my regular viewers, I don't have to say who you are and why I invite you, because you are one of the author who is quoted quite often on this podcast. But for first-time viewers, I would say that you are one of the most prominent economic blogger. How many subscribers on Substack do you have?
260,000.
Great number. Very, very impressive. But how you will describe and define your role? Because you are not a typical journalist, not a typical scholar. How you define what you are doing?
So I think I'm more like a CIA analyst. I think, when you have the CIA or some intelligence service, you have agents in the field, they gather the information. They're like reporters or academics. They gather the original information. Then you have one guy called an analyst who sits there and he reads all the stuff from the agents and then makes a report to the higher up people. I'm that guy, except instead of making a report to the higher up people, I report to the public.
Okay, so not working for government, but for the public.
Yeah.
Okay, and one of your posts was about Poland. You compare our economic growth model to Malaysia. For people from Europe, it is not a very clear association and very obvious association. So could you explain it a little bit? Should we feel offended, or it was rather a compliment?
It's a compliment but you don't need a compliment because you already know how successful Poland has been. I'm trying to explain the success. For many years, people thought the only way you can succeed in going, in industrializing is to build your own big companies, as like Korea did. Korea built like Hyundai, Samsung, and these famous companies, LG, and they competed with Japanese companies, with American companies directly, even though they were poor. Now, that's really, really difficult. It would be nice to have a simpler model of developing. And for many years, people thought getting foreign direct investment is not enough. If some other country comes in and just builds your factories, you won't get rich because the companies from the other countries will keep their own technology. They won't give you the good stuff. And so you won't have brands of your own. It turns out that maybe that's true, but FDI can take you much farther than anyone realized. And Poland and Malaysia are just two countries that have proven this. Actually, Taiwan to some degree as well, and China.
Okay, but those distinction between FDI-driven model and export-driven model It is quite significant, yeah, because in this blog, it was a part of the series of the blogs of posts about other countries, and inspiration for those series was a book "How Asia Works" by Joe Stodel, yeah, and in this book, Korea is shown like a success. Malaysia is not so much, yeah.
Right.
So maybe you are too optimistic.
Well, maybe, but in that book, Joe Studwell, the author, that book was written 20 years ago, and the author discusses Malaysia's failure to build a car industry. But what's interesting is that Malaysia has really succeeded in building an electronics industry, and that success is not mentioned in the book because it was still in progress. But Malaysia's electronic industry is really good. Relative to its economy, it makes much more electronics than the United States does, and so it's really good at this. And that was built with FDI from American companies, Japanese companies, and Korean companies mostly. And Malaysia is now catching up with Korea. It hasn't caught up, but it's slowly sort of catching up to where Korea was. And Malaysia is now the second richest country in Southeast Asia after Singapore, which is this tiny little city-state. So Malaysia is more successful than that book realized, and that was inspiring. And I felt like Poland was the most successful economy in Europe that really took a lot of FDI. There's some others too, like Hungary, Romania,
Central Europe,
and but Poland outshone them all. Like that was the most successful one, and so that's why Poland and Malaysia was the most successful FDI-based economy in Asia. Poland, the most successful one in Europe.
Okay, so generally you say something similar to Professor Piątkowski and his book Golden Age. Yeah, that the last 3 decades of Polish growth was a golden age. But in those books, as well as in your article about Poland, there is like a hunger for more, and there is like a dream about next step. Yeah, how to make this next step and not be just a supplier, but also create your own technology. Yeah,
right.
How to do it?
Well, that's a great question. That's a very important question. So I would say that there's a couple ways to do it. One way, but actually, I think Poland has a great opportunity. So, do you know Clay Christensen and the Innovator's Dilemma? Do you know this book?
No.
So it's a famous book about why big companies get defeated by small companies.
Okay.
The big company.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No.
The key is that it concentrates on its old customers, and the small company can concentrate on new customers and build a new market niche that eventually their technology overtakes the old technology. Countries can work very similarly. Right now, the old economies of Europe, Germany, Italy, France, the UK, these countries have established companies with their own markets, but Poland has the chance to disrupt this. So, for example, let's take electric cars, right? So Volkswagen and the other old European auto companies have invested in Poland a lot, but they are having trouble transitioning to electric cars because they're serving their old customers, and making electric cars will compete with their old business lines. But Chinese companies started with electric first, so that's why everyone in Germany is now scared. Oh no, what happened? Poland can do the same thing. Poland could make an electric first car company. I know there's people trying to do this now.
Izera.
Yeah,
Right.
Izera, and Izera started before the pandemic, and I think that now the opportunity is bigger than it was before. And so I think there's no reason to only do one. They should do several. So Malaysia's mistake with the car industry was putting all of the effort into one single company. There was no one to compete locally. But China has has supported 100 electric car companies. And so you have BYD was the winner, right? But you also have SAIC, Xiaomi, which was a phone company. Geely is lagging behind, actually. And so I think that
Geely, thanks to Volvo, yeah, they acquired Volvo, yeah.
And so I think using internal competition is very powerful when creating like a new industry. But Europe doesn't have an EV industry yet. And Poland, with everybody in Poland knows how to make a car, right? because Germany invested and basically Polish people learned how to make cars really well. And so now they can do that. And then Poland makes batteries. You have everything you need to make top of the line electric cars first, and their customers will be electric first. So that's just one of many examples, many industries. I could think of drones, rockets, blah, blah, blah. So many things in manufacturing.
May I,
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
I understand correct, your vision is that don't talk about past, FDI, like
Right.
stage of the economy is natural, is good, it builds this gold age. But next step means you should pick sectors which are really promising, yeah, and support via like state subsidiaries, some private competition, but strongly supported by public aid. Do you understand it correct?
Yeah, I understand. But so I'll go on and say, I don't know that state aid is the most powerful tool. It's fine. I'm not against it, but I think the most powerful tool for this is finance. If you look at any successful manufacturing economy that builds its own companies, they're all built with bank loans. Now, Poland doesn't have big
Bank
banks.
loans, sorry, connected with exports, yeah? KPIs for exports, yeah? That you give them money as long as they can reach some numbers conquering like global markets.
Right. Now, that's the Korea model, but the Japan model is not so much export focused. They simply and also China's exporting a lot, but they don't actually reward exports. They reward production, and they all the companies compete with each other inside China, and then they produce too much, and then the extra stuff they sell overseas. That's called overproduction. And Japan basically used this model too, but it's very effective at promoting exports even with no subsidies. So I know there's many rules against subsidizing exports. Like the WTO has rules, I'm sure the EU has rules. But the way to get around this is subsidize bank loans instead. And this also gets around many of the rules, EU rules against direct subsidies of companies. Use finance, use banks. That's the key, because nobody bans that.
Okay, I really enjoy this vision. It's very similar to those vision I try to talk about in this podcast. But let me just be this devil advocate, yeah, and make some challenges. First, it's obvious that when you have a economy like ours, when FDI was in the center, a lot of our producers, they used to work in this model business to business. Yeah, so it means that they understood that they are not powerful enough to be someone who have a final client. So just plug in these Western value chains and, to say it directly, rather produce not a car, not the Volkswagen, but rather a halogen lamp to Volkswagen, yeah? And it was like the way how to conquer the global markets, yeah? How to change this perspective, yeah? Because it's totally different to be just a part of the value chain and just, good product, but without selling, yeah? Because it's just, it's enough to have a good direct relations to Volkswagen to sell them halogens, and that's all. And there's a quite a new competition to build the whole, cell pipeline and cell system which works globally. How to learn it and how to make this step, yeah, from the B to B model to B to client model, so business to client model.
Yeah, so the answer is I don't 100% know. I'm not an expert here, so I don't want to portray myself as an expert. My instinct says domestic competition can produce. Can help here, because when you selling to domestic customers is like training for selling to international customers. And so competition among Polish companies, between Polish versus Polish companies, can lead to winners who understand that. China has done this very successfully. So China used to be just contract manufacturing for everything, but then they built some brands, for example, in electronics, Huawei, Lenovo, Xiaomi, and some other companies like that. They built these brands that are very effective, that don't just do contract manufacturing. They are OEMs now. They have their own brand. How do you do that? in those examples I gave, there was a different method each time. So I think it's not necessarily one method that always works, but just try various things. Huawei had state support. Lenovo really benefited from buying IBM's PC division, and the IBM people taught them how to do it. So it's their own outbound FDI educated them about how to do it. So that's another model. Xiaomi was a startup. So actually, my friend was the first investor in that startup, and he's very rich. But then, so 3 different ways to do 3 different brands, but they all succeeded.
I see, because there's a common, opinion, especially among IT companies, that we have a lot of Steve Wozniak guys, technical guys, possible chief technology officer, but we don't have enough chief sales officer, and also with CEO, it's not so easy as well, So maybe the simplest way to learn it is just to hire chief sales officer, You build product and learn how to sell it globally from someone else, Okay,
Sweden, how about Sweden? Hire from Sweden. They have more tech entrepreneurs per capita than the United States. They have tons of tech entrepreneurs, but Sweden's a small market. It's close by. You're in the same Euro area, so get some Swedish people to come over.
Yeah. Good idea. Another barrier is lack of trust between state and domestic companies. Because for the 3 decades, when you support their direct competitors, just tell Western companies, let's came here, I will give you the tax relief and other help. Right now, they are really think we don't need state. We don't need your support. Just leave us alone because we don't trust you. And it is very difficult to change this mood. And do you have such a clever idea how to rebuild this trust between state and domestic companies? Because I think it's crucial when you try to switch this model from the FDI to more export oriented.
Well, I have no idea, but my instinct is beer.
Beer.
Have a lot of beer together. This is the Irish way. So then just go and have a beer have regular. What I mean is
I know,
regular contact. So do a lot of things together. One institution that can often bridge the public-private gap is universities. So if you have universities do things to bring together public and private, this can be very effective in sometimes. But I don't really know, honestly. I've never done anything like that. And I don't really know how it works.
Yeah, but I think that this trust is a really challenge. And the third one is the middle income trap. Yeah, it is a common topic.
And you beat it. You're out of it.
Yeah, really?
You're not middle income. You're high
80% of European average.
Yeah, 80%. That's you're at the lower end of high income, but you're almost as rich as Japan. In a couple of years, you'll be as rich as Japan.
But for many years, it was like the main threat of Polish economics. That we are in this trap and how to escape from it. So right now, do you think that this concept is like misleading, or just we have luck to escape this trap?
It's a real concept, but you already escaped it. This is a high income country. I mean, it's not the highest, but this is a high income country. This is as rich as America was in the 90s or more. Like I look around, this is a high income country. Of course I don't know what people's houses look like. Maybe people don't have as many TVs.
They're beautiful.
I'm sure
we are not so patient, we are not so pay attention to public square. But private, because of the family mood in Poland, the houses are really beautiful inside.
Yeah, but the public square looks great. Everything looks great. Like maybe small towns don't look as good, but like this is a high income country already. Like you're past the middle income trap.
Okay, so the last question of this topic, how to change this model in Poland. There is still a sentiment because of the lack of these domestic brands. This sentiment of, I will call it neo-colonialism. Yeah?
Right.
That's because of this FDI model.
Right.
At the end of the day, it means that there are a lot of Western companies right now and right here, and we can just be a worker for others. Yeah, and I think that this debate and this sentiment is not only a problem of Central Europe; it's not a problem of, but it is also a problem of LATAM and some countries in in Southeast Asia. Yeah, what do you think about this? The whole concept of this periphery and the core state. Does global system really works this way?
I mean, yes, of course, it works that way.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, this is one of my favorite economic theories, and it's by Paul Krugman. It's the idea is that you naturally develop a core and a periphery, but often you can have the periphery surpass the core and become a new core. So now Japan and Korea and Taiwan are both richer than Japan, but really they began as the periphery of Japan, and now they're richer. I think Germany used to be sort of the periphery of England in the old like 100 years ago, but now it's the core. Now Germany is richer than UK, and things like that. And California was the periphery of the economy of America, based in New York. Now California is richer, so the periphery can become the new core.
When you mentioned about Germany, I think about Friedrich List and his concept. When you mention about Japan, I'm thinking about Meiji era, yeah, and the whole concept of industrialization. When you mention about Korea, I'm thinking about General Park. Those three examples, they've got the same fundament, yeah, the fundament of active state, which supports industrial policy.
Yes.
Am I right? Is it also your view?
Yes.
Okay. Very short answer.
No, definitely.
Okay.
I mean, that's true.
That's true.
You definitely need an activist state to. It's called the developmental state. It's it doesn't always work the same in every case, but I think you will need that. Simply, it's fine for private companies to grow on their own. And what I didn't say before, by the way, was that the stuff I was talking about before is mostly hardware based, but software is a different model. And in software, Poland has the opportunity to be the center of a European software industry that doesn't really exist now. Like Europe doesn't have big software companies, but there's so many good software engineers in East Europe, and Poland can, if they want, they can be the center of that. So this is like Ireland is trying to do this, too. But then, so I don't understand the EU rules and regulations to know how much the EU is suppressing the software industry. Many Americans claim that the EU is suppressing software with, GDPR or something. But I think that there's lots of room for innovation in software in Europe because you have the talent, and you don't really need heavy government support for that. All you need, venture capital and some entrepreneurs and some engineers. It's much more low startup cost, right? That's the difference. The difference is low startup cost, and you can easily do like international sales. So that's a second track. I think when you have a country and you're trying to get rich, you should always do multiple strategies at once. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And software is another basket. And so,
okay.
Yeah.
You started a totally different topic, so I just want to say that we will be back to this development state, because I think it's a very interesting. But when you are talking about software, another challenge, even in startups in Poland, there is a common opinion that we shouldn't dream about being another Google. Yeah, it is out of our horizon. We should just build a good application which will be buy by Google and we will be acquired by Google. Yeah, and 92% of the startups, they not finished as an IPO. Yeah, as an independent company on the stock exchange, but they are just acquired by the huge global American companies. Yeah, so I think that even in this beautiful vision, there is some question marks about is it really possible to build another software companies as big as Google with such a mindset, just be acquired by Google.
Well, I don't know that you can build one as big as Google, because the internet has mostly been built.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
there's probably lots of opportunities still there. You need
But
people
I mean,
who want to build something big. Who wants to build something big? I don't know. Like many people in America do, but honestly, we get a lot of entrepreneurs who are immigrants Google, I think Sergey Brin is an immigrant. There's lots of, or immigrants or the kids of immigrants. So I think like, and there's lots of people, there's lots of places around here where immigrants who want to build something big could come from. Ukraine, Sweden, I don't know, Moldova, I don't know. Like there's a lot of software people there who their countries are either poor like Ukraine or boring like Sweden. And they want to, the weather is very dark and everyone wants to escape. Even though the country is super nice, it's very beautiful, everything's beautiful, but yet the weather is bad. Okay. And so, so kind of like Vancouver in America, everyone wants to get out even though it's really beautiful from Canada. So just get immigrants too.
That's the what I'm talking about, because you mentioned some examples when immigrants, when they came from Russia, from Central Europe, they can achieve something really big, but somehow it's not possible in their home country. Yeah, and I'm asking myself how to change it, because, for example, there is a opinion in this VC startup circles that we should be proud that a lot of guys from this team of OpenAI, they were guys from Poland. Yeah, okay, but somehow they have to move to Silicon Valley to establish such a company. Yeah, so for me it's another example that we have very talented people, but somehow the institution doesn't work in this way that they can build an OpenAI here in Poland. And I don't think that it's just a lack of money, or probably it is one of the problem. Yeah. Another example is ICEYE. I don't know if you heard about it. It is a very
spelled how?
Yeah, space new space startup.
Oh,
they building nano satellites.
Cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
And the guy who found this, they had to move to Finland and establish the company in Finland. It is a Polish-Finnish company, but there was lack of institutional help for him here in Poland. Yeah, and it is something I try to ask myself, how to build such a good circumstances that those talented people can establish a really global companies here, not just brain drain and
right.
We are happy that some of the founders from the US are
right.
They've got Polish heritage. Yeah.
So again, I think the key is probably finance. Institutional support, fine, good, do that. Universities, you need universities to really help a lot. But then finance and immigration is good, but finance is important. In the reason that tech companies kept going to San Francisco in that area is there was a whole bunch of venture capital offices there. So if you attract a lot of venture capital to one place, the companies will, and then if you allow all engineers to go to that place, either from the inside the country or immigration too, then you will have people who want to start companies there because they'll be close to the investors.
Agglomeration effect.
Yeah, in this case, clustering, but similar. Agglomeration is like across different industries, but clustering is within one. So then, this is, you're not going to build the next Silicon Valley, but no one is, right? Because there's only one Silicon Valley. But there's lots of other good software clusters in the world. There's Hyderabad and Mumbai in India. There's, Shenzhen in China. There's in America, you have Seattle, you have Austin, you have these other clusters. Even San Diego is pretty good, and so you can you don't have to build the next Silicon Valley to have a good software cluster. And remember, I think national development, you just do many things, right, and they all add up.
Okay, so we talk a lot about challenges we have to face. Let's now talk about challenges that United States has to challenge. And I will go back to this development state concept, because for many Poles, it could be surprising that someone who is a prominent economic blogger from States supports so strongly industrial policies, because in common view, United States is like a promised land of Adam Smith and Ronald Reagan. So tell me and tell us something more about totally different way of interpreting of your history. I mean, those Alexander Hamilton heritage, Theo Roosevelt, New Deal. There are a lot of
Franklin Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt as well. Yeah.
No, he did different. He
New nationalism. I think that there was a lot of.
But yeah, economically, he was very neoliberal.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
No. It's your story.
Or liberal in the day. But yeah, there was. He was against big trusts. He was antitrust.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, he said, because competition and markets are good. You know. It's, But FDR did the New Deal, and that was in the 30s. That was in response to the Depression. But okay, so industrial policy in America usually came in war. So in the Civil War, they promoted railroads. They said, we need these railroads to transport material for the war. So we built a lot of railroads, and then those became very useful after that. Or they promoted manufacturing for the war, to make guns, clothes, supplies, transportation. In World War II, we did a lot of industrial policy to promote industries for the war. And then in the Cold War, we did the same. We built infrastructure, we did research, and then we supported specific industries. And sometimes that support was actually bad. So for example, our support for the steel industry was bad because our steel industry did not innovate, because it was so government supported that our U.S. steel didn't have to innovate, so it never made any new technology, so it died. It's not completely dead, but it's basically dead. So then, but we did this, and the good and the bad we did mostly for war or for like a Cold War. Sometimes, so in the late 80s and early 90s, we did some industrial policy because we were afraid of Japanese competition. So we did industrial policy in semiconductors and some other stuff. But then it didn't last very long. It was not durable. But so we usually do industrial policy because we're scared of global competition. And I think that's why we're turning back to industrial policy again, because it's because of China. It's all because of China. So the pattern persists.
Yeah. Before we will came to China, but from the beginning, you said that only because of the war was a factor. I think that from the beginning, I mean, this Alexander Hamilton heritage is really important. Yeah, from the beginning, you protect your own domestic companies and manufacturers. Yeah, it is also something important to remember. Yeah,
right. But for the first 50 years of America, the main question was, how do we stop Britain from conquering us? Because we broke away from them, but we thought they might come back. And in fact, in 1812, they sort of tried to come back. Yeah. And then even in the Civil War, we were afraid they would support the South.
And protection of domestic companies and industries was a part of this building nation process. Yeah.
Yes. And it was protecting it entirely against Britain. Mm-hmm. That was who we were protecting it against. So we didn't want we didn't want our enemy at that time to buy our whole industry and own and control our industry.
Mm-hmm. For me, it is important because, those neoliberal paradigm told us the story that the United States was only about free market. Yeah, it's not the case.
No.
Okay.
I mean, free markets have been important at many times, but, we don't use a single strategy in the United States.
Okay. So let's move back to the China problem. There's a common phrase, trade war, but reading your posts and your blog, I rather think about it as a manufacture war. Do you agree?
Well, yes, because most trade is manufacturing. Because it's very easy to ship a product, it's hard to ship a service.
Could you elaborate it a little bit more? Because
most services depend on human-to-human interaction and are therefore local.
Yeah, no, I don't mean this part. I mean, the problem is that 15% of the global manufacture power right now is in States, and more than 30% in China. Yeah, so it's this China shock, we can say. Yeah, it's one part of the story, and the second is that this China shock leads to the labor problems inside the United States. Yeah, those red belt. Those two topics I think should be more developed.
Yeah. Well, certainly. I mean, that definitely happened. when you're talking about the first China shock, that was the 2000s.
Mhm.
And this happened for a number of reasons, but mainly China was so big and it opened so suddenly and it was so low income that manufacturers had no choice but to make everything in China. And China encouraged FDI. So everybody just did FDI in China. But that, and also China undervalued its currency. So they made their currency very cheap. By the way, Poland has an advantage in having independent currency. So now China, the China shock ended in 2008. China stopped undervaluing its currency mostly stopped, didn't completely stop, but mostly stopped. And then Chinese costs started catching up, and China shifted from a model based on exports to a model based on domestic investment, especially of real estate. That is what led to their bust recently. But now they're trying to shift again to an export-based model, manufacturing-based model, and this is causing the second China shock, but the second China shock is very different from the first. The first one was based not on direct subsidies, but it was based on, there was cheap bank finance, cheap land, cheap energy. So there were upstream subsidies, right? Indirect subsidies. But it was also, and the currency was certainly a subsidy. But it was also just based on basic costs. It was cheaper to make things in China. And now it's not really, except it is cheaper after subsidies. But before subsidies, the costs of China have caught up with costs elsewhere. So now I think China's shock is less sustainable. If we put tariffs on China in 2005, we'd mostly just we would protect a few workers, but then we would have hurt ourselves more because we would have not gotten the cheap consumer goods. And that was the whole debate in 2000. And so the anti-protectionists won. And that's fine. We could have handled it better. We could have pushed back against the currency manipulation, but we didn't. We should have done that, but we didn't. In the meantime, but now, if we do some tariffs, Chinese companies will just start going bust left and right. Putting tariffs on China would not have destroyed a lot of Chinese companies in 2005, but it will now, and that is happening now. You see steel companies dying, solar companies, car companies going bust because they were overproducing. And as soon as you put tariffs to cancel out the Chinese subsidies, they have nowhere to go. They have nothing to do. They were over-subsidized and overstimulated, and then they just. And maybe that's fine for China because in the end they'll be left with a few highly productive companies like BYD or whatever. But that's fine. Now the second China shock is simply different. It's more of a distortion in the international system than the first China shock was, and so we should push back against it more strongly.
Mm-hmm. And what was the Biden administration reaction to this challenge? Because your view on his economic policy is quite positive, yeah? Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. Very positive.
So
what we mean? What did you want me to describe? What he did?
Yeah. Because I think it's not so obvious for people in Poland that the Biden had very concrete politics towards those challenges.
Right. Biden did four things. The first thing he did was industrial policy. We're going to support strategic industries, support semiconductors, batteries. Those are the main
CHIP
things.
Acts, yeah.
Yeah. CHIPS Act.
Anti-inflation.
And the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah. And those supported semiconductors and green energy. And there's been a huge amount of factory construction based on those. So it's looking successful so far, but we don't know if the factories will be long-term successful. We don't know that. But they're being built. People are building a lot of factories, a lot of investment.
Amount of money is huge, yeah?
Huge. Much bigger than the government subsidy. Exactly. Government subsidy is tiny compared to the private investment. And so that's the first one. Second one, export controls. We're going to try to keep our edge over China in the chip industry. The third one is
tariffs.
Tariffs. And the fourth one is friendshoring. So try to move critical supply chains out of China to a friendly country like India or someplace like that.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that those policy will be bipartisan? Will remain if Trump will win an election?
It's hard to say. Maybe, maybe not. I think that with the CHIPS Act. I think with the CHIPS Act, yes, definitely it will be bipartisan and it will stay. I think with export controls, I don't know because China may be able to buy Trump if he wins. China may be able to just give him money secretly to take away export controls. So that might happen. With tariffs, same thing. But I think Trump likes tariffs a lot, but they might be able to bribe him secretly. And then with friendshoring, I think that Trump will ignore friendshoring completely, but I don't know if Harris will pursue friendshoring either. So I don't really know what will happen there. With industrial policy, I think the CHIPS Act will stay, but the subsidizing green energy may die because Republicans think green energy is bad. They don't like batteries. They don't like solar. So they might, they're stupid. They just don't understand technology. They don't understand the technological revolution. Mm-hmm. But they may cancel it. But one good thing is that the Inflation Reduction Act put all the jobs from these efforts in the red states, in the Republican states. So they may be given an incentive to keep the green industrial policy as well, simply because it's giving their people jobs.
Mm-hmm. Jack Sullivan, very important statement that when he think about green energy, or climate change, he thinks about jobs. Yeah, and then Biden repeats exactly the same.
Right.
And the red states, it was a clever move. It is difficult to cancel it right now. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And also there is a NIMBYism problem. One of your favorite topic.
Yes.
What the NIMBYism is?
Oh, NIMBY means not in my backyard. So it's people who try to stop any development on the land near them. Houses, factories, transportation.
Mm-hmm. And somehow you mentioned that there is a lot of new factories. So it means that this NIMBYism is not so big a problem as you describe it.
Well, it's still a big problem. I mean, many projects have been delayed because of NIMBYism, but the good thing about putting things in red states is that red states have much weaker NIMBYs. Mm-hmm. In red states have so much extra land. They tend to be the states with a lot of extra land, mm-hmm. like Texas, or someplace like that. So so basically NIMBYism is less of a problem in red states, which is why Texas builds so much more than California. So another smart thing about putting all the new stuff in the red states was that not only does it get bipartisan Republican support, but it will also be, NIMBYs will be less of a problem. So there's still a problem. They are holding up a lot of things, especially transmission grids. Electrical transmission is being killed by NIMBYs in America. Mm-hmm. But storage is not, because it doesn't take much land. Solar in some places being killed by NIMBYs. Mm-hmm. Battery factories, not really. And chip factories, not really.
Mm-hmm. But this topic show me that I really like your perspective, because it's very horizontal. It is very, you don't only think about growth like just numbers and typical, financial approach. Yeah, you try also to understand this cultural and institutional circumstances. But somehow this NIMBYism problem is could be treated as an argument against democracy. Yeah, because NIMBYism shows that when you have solution to protect public goods or some reality around you, you use it. When in authoritarian states there is a direct decision and the factory is just built. Yeah, don't you think that that it is one of the weakness of the contemporary democracy?
No, because NIMBYism is rule by the few. If you, for example, with housing, if you look at opinion, most people want to build more housing, but those people only want to build more housing a little bit. The NIMBYs are concentrated. Mm-hmm. They show up to the meetings, they vote, they do all this. The general public opinion wants to build more housing. And it's the NIMBYs who don't. It's the small number of people blocking a large number of people. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes NIMBYism wins at in elections, but often it does not. So what's interesting in San Francisco is what you see is you have the citywide elections and then you have the individual district elections. The district elections elect very NIMBY people, and the citywide elections always elect anti-NIMBY. Because the people want to build housing throughout the city, but they don't want it all concentrated in their local area.
Mhm.
So basically, the issue of NIMBYism is concentrated interest groups versus diffuse interest groups. And Mansur Olson, the economist, talked a lot about this. And so there's no reason that democracy has to mean rule by the most engaged, high activity people, right?
And very loudy.
Yes. You can have a democracy where majority rules, where the silent majority will rule. But you have to empower the government and the bureaucracy to do the will of the silent majority instead of just the will of the loud minority.
What is even more difficult in times of the social media, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Because the Twitter or X is like those what show you the agenda for politics, yeah.
Absolutely.
And on these platforms, those Nimbus guy are very very prominent.
Right.
Okay, so to finalize and to somehow make a conclusion of our discussion, we talk about Poland and our challenges, about states and your challenges. What is the common ground for those two perspectives? I mean, do you think that this challenge between the struggle between China and states could be treated as a possibility for Poland to play a more important role in Washington mindset? I mean, as a country, on one hand, which support and which support states in against Russia, obviously, and on the other hand, as because of the more and more powerful economy, as a part of this arsenal for democracy. You mentioned about it.
Absolutely.
Do you think that this vision is possible to?
Yes, yes, this is a great vision. America needs a whole lot of drones. Who's going to make that? Well, we can make some in America, but Poland's a great place to make it because you have, all these Ukrainians who know how to make good drones, and yet you can do it safe, mostly safe from Russian attack. Maybe Russia will attack in the future, but not soon. And so you've got all the things required to build a great drone industry, a great missile industry too. Missiles are just big, fast drones, really. And so there's two countries in the world that know how to build a really good rocket. It's America and Ukraine. And so the Ukrainians built all the Soviet rockets. I guess China's okay, but then, so get the Ukrainian rocket guys to build rocket companies here. America will need 1 million missiles against China. Help us build them. Even ships. I don't know. Poland could have a shipbuilding industry in the future, but right now, drones and missiles. That's what America needs. That's what Poland can make. Do that, and then that will help. And also, any manufacturing industry that competes directly with China, but that the United States will put tariffs on, Poland has an opportunity there. So, for example, batteries. So America is much more likely to import batteries from Poland if they're not actually made by a Chinese company using a third party. Mm-hmm. America will import batteries from Poland much more readily than from China.
Okay. What about nuclear sharing on one hand, and on the other hand, building a nuclear power plant, because it is one of the crucial industrial policy right now in Poland, and we should build it, as long as I know, with American enterprise. Do you think that it's also a good field for cooperation?
Well, no, because I think America is not very good at building nuclear plants anymore. I think Korea is the country that you want to cooperate with. They build it much cheaper now.
Not political correct answer.
Why? No, that's politically correct for me.
As an American citizen.
Oh, no, I mean, that is. Like, we know this is true.
Okay.
Everyone says this. In general, I think Poland should improve its cooperation with both Korea and Japan. I think this is a huge unexploited opportunity. There's lots of industrial stuff. Korea, I mean, Poland already has a lot of, economic relationship with Germany and with some other rich European countries. Korea and Japan, get them to come here, and take them around, give them some pierogi, Bill. And, they'll like it here. And so I think that, and they have lots of industrial expertise and high costs in their own country, so they can do FDI, and they can also do joint ventures, things like that. And they also need help with production. They're very worried about China. So improve the relationship with Japan and Korea.
Great. Thank you, Noah. It was a pleasure. First time here, but I hope that not last time. And feel always invited to this podcast and to Poland.
Thank you so much. Well, I definitely plan to come back. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Thank you.